The night was dark, and the church was eerily silent. Inside, a group of men huddled in the shadows, their faces illuminated only by the flickering candlelight. They whispered in hushed tones, their voices trembling with fear and determination. One of them, a man with a weathered face and piercing eyes, stood up and addressed the group. "Brothers, the time has come. We cannot remain silent any longer. The darkness that has consumed our church must be exposed, and the lies that have been fed to the people must be challenged." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the room, making sure each man understood the gravity of the moment. Idolatry has taken root in our very midst. The Mass, once a sacred act of remembrance, has become an abomination. It denies the unique and unrepeatable death of Christ, reducing it to a mere sacrifice that must be repeated again and again. This is a sacrilege, a desecration of the very heart of our faith. The men nodded, their expressions hardening with resolve. One of them, a young priest with a fiery passion, spoke up. "Father, you speak the truth. The people are being led astray, and their souls are in peril. But how can we fight against such a powerful and entrenched system? The bishops, the priests, even the Pope himself, how can we challenge them?" The older man's eyes glinted with a fierce determination. "We will start with the truth. We will preach the word of God, unadulterated and pure. We will expose the lies and the corruption. We will stand firm, even if it means facing persecution and exile for the sake of Christ and the salvation of our people. We must act." The room was silent for a moment, the weight of his words settling over the group. Then, one by one, they stood and raised their hands in a silent vow of commitment. "Let us begin," the older man said, his voice steady and strong. "We will start with the basics. We must understand the roots of this corruption, the history of the Church, and the teachings of the Bible. We must be grounded in the truth before we can hope to spread it." He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice growing more urgent as he delved into the history of the Church and the rise of idolatry. He spoke of the golden calf, the calves of Jeroboam, and the false worship that had plagued the people of God throughout history. He reminded them of the words of the Apostle Paul, who had warned against fellowship with works of darkness and the dangers of being yoked with unbelievers. "Idolatry is not just about false gods and statues," he said. "It is about the heart. It is about the worship of anything that takes the place of the one true God. It is about the rejection of His law and the substitution of human traditions and practices that lead people astray." The men listened intently, their faces reflecting a mix of anger, sorrow, and determination. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they were ready to face it. "Brothers, we must not be afraid to speak the truth, even if it means standing alone. We must not be afraid to challenge the powers that be, even if it means facing persecution. For the sake of the gospel, for the sake of the people, we must stand firm." As the night wore on, the men began to plan their strategies, to discuss the messages they would preach, and to prepare for the battles that lay ahead. They knew that the road would be long and the stakes would be high, but they were united in their purpose. The candle burned low, and the shadows deepened, but the fire in their hearts burned brighter. They were ready to bring the light of truth into the darkness, no matter the cost.